Hello, everyone, and it's a great pleasure to be here. But let me start with the story of resilience, hope, and the dream that it just like failed sometimes and it just grew sometimes, but it just echoes like through the generation and continents. I am Fatimah Hossaini, like kind of a daughter of exiles that made twice refugee life in my life. And but I'm full of the echoes of the rugged mountains of Afghanistan and the resilience of its women. My grandparents left Afghanistan actually during the Soviet invasion and to Tehran, Iran. And for me, it was always, Afghanistan was a name that my parents talking about, and I had the name of Afghanistan on my passport, but I didn't have any idea where is Afghanistan. Born in 1993, I was always looking for the place that calling home, but I didn't know that where is it. So that's why the fate led me to Kabul in 2013 for the first time. And I just found the courage, the resilience, and all the stories that my parents were like talking about in the streets of Kabul. But more important, I found the stories of its women. And today you will see some of my works. In Afghanistan, I went through the storytelling and photography as I studied photography at the University of Tehran, and before that, industrial engineering. But the thing is that I was always wanted to change the narrative and kind of redefine it and rewrite the narrative that you always hear from a conflict zone and from Afghanistan. It was about breaking the cliche of the dark image that you always see from women of Afghanistan. It was always burqa, it was always the sad news and the dark images on the cover of different magazines that I don't want to ignore the reality and the kind of politically and social background of Afghanistan, and I don't want to misrepresent it. But the thing is that Afghanistan has another face as well, and that's why the beauty amid war just shaped in the middle of all this chaos and hopelessness. So I went through the life of women in Afghanistan to cover the beauty, cover the hope, and cover the resilience, and not just wanted to reproduce again the dark images that you always hear in the news, like explosions, Taliban, suicide, I don't know, terrorist attacks, all these news that you always hear from Afghanistan. So that's why I went through the life of women who dare to stand in front of my camera. Honestly, being an Afghan woman and also being a photographer and capturing women was not easy at all. I mean, all the time I got a message from a brother, from a father, from a husband that delete the picture, how you dare to take these pictures, like so many of these crazy stories. But I went through the life of these women, and I just consciously put different elements, different emotions and different colors into each single photo that you see. I mean, the story of a hat, the story of a textile, the story of different ethnicities, and these all just shaped in the heart of Afghanistan, Kabul. So the thing is that I never grew up seeing that the beauty of women of Afghanistan being celebrated or even shown in the exhibition or even talking about their resilience. So that's why I just wanted to rewrite this narrative and just going through the different story of different women from Kabul to Bamiyan, from Badakhshan to Herat, and from Kandahar to Nangarhar. So, unfortunately, as artists always see the critical outlooks, for some, first of all, they thought that I'm just an Afghan Hazara refugee, that Afghanistan is not my country. I mean, I just saw this ignorance. But I have as much rights and claim to call Afghanistan my home and my country, and I have as much rights, and I am as much from the mountains of Daikundi that my ancestors live there, but displaced first from Oruzgan to Daikundi, and then from Afghanistan to Iran. And yeah, but secondly, when I get back to Afghanistan and capture these photos, for some of them, it means that I make a fantasy, and I'm just ignoring the reality of women of Afghanistan. But I never wanted to glorify war because I'm the victim of war. And then the other thing is that I just didn't want to reproduce the cliche Oriental victimized frame from women of Afghanistan that you always see from Western media to even Asian, like to all medias that you always hear. And also it was kind of a silent political protest that I just wanted to say outside of the world that you cannot tell me that what is my right to talk about when I am a woman from Afghanistan. Because to be honest, I was always questioned, and I will always get orders that, okay, Fatima, talk about this, you have to show this, you have to show this, you have to talk about the burqa, because it's the reality of women of Afghanistan. Like, no, it's not. I mean, I don't want to say that to ignore the war, but there were so many beauties in Afghanistan. The story of all this textile, the story of these hats, the story of these women were so more beautiful than always hearing about war, or always hearing from the conflicts, or always listening to the narrative and the cliches that you always hear from Afghanistan. So this was all my efforts to show something different from women of Afghanistan and to talk about the femininity in the middle of chaos. And I just owe all my project and all these beauties that today I have a different representation from a conflict zone, Afghanistan, that you always hear. And I owe this project to all the women who dare to stand in front of my lens and my camera in the streets of Kabul. And because it was not easy at all to ask women in Afghanistan to stand in front of your camera. By the way, amidst all these efforts, all my stories in Afghanistan, unfortunately, the story of my grandparents happened to me even worse in August 2021. Yeah, it's the darkest day of my life, but yes, American left Afghanistan and the collapse of Republic, Taliban get back to power, and women's life shattered and disappeared. I got the French evacuation from the military side of the airport, and I left to France. And yeah, every time I talk about it, it's an emotional time for me, because I left my beloved city Kabul behind, and I just left my country just with a backpack to nowhere, to another exile. But this time, I think it was another story of resilience. It was not Kabul, it was not Afghanistan, it was not the streets of my beloved city, and it was exile, even if it's Paris, the beautiful city in the world. But this time I just wanted to, again, I mean, maybe the story of courage or resilience is in our blood and is in the blood of women of Afghanistan. But I went through covering the beauty and this resilience in another shape. So I just found it in the eyes of women of Afghanistan in exile. So we always labeled by different things. This victimization, is always in our life, even if we were in Afghanistan, from the discriminations against the ethnicities have together, from being a refugee in neighboring countries, and then even in Western countries labeled as an asylum seeker or refugee or foreigners or whatever you always hear. So that's why I went through the life of women artists in exile and wanted to cover also their courage, their beauty, and their resilience in exile. And this is the last portrait of my photo book, Beauty Amidst War. That this hat, Topak, is the last piece I could bring with myself from Kabul. And it's from the mountains of Daikundi. And the colorful color of this hat is the symbol of resilience of women of Afghanistan for me. So, as I am a storyteller, photographer, and I always want to rewrite and, redefine kind of the stories, the narratives. So I think this time I have to go beyond geographies. I lost the land, I lost my beliefs, everything in Afghanistan, and Iran even couldn't be my country at all because I could never be recognized as an Iranian after 20, and I don't know, like so many years living there. But now in the middle of this uncertain path, I think being a woman is more than ever important for me. And that's why I'm another wanderer now, but in the road of Silk Road. So I just tried to reproduce some other pictures and to celebrate the strength and beauty and resilience of women in other parts of this world. And this is my new project, started just in Silk Road, to tell the stories of women in another land and celebrate their strength, as I told, and also talking about how women always make beauties, even in the middle of conflict, in the middle of chaos, and they never made a decision to war, but they were always, and they have been always, the victim of war. And may all the women of the world and women of Afghanistan stand tall.